Well, again, I live in the United States, and so a lot of my perspective is, of course, based on what I see in the U.S. But what I think that also mirrors a little bit of what is occurring in Europe. So, even different regions of the world can have some similarities. But I also have noticed that, it's very different in India. So there's slightly different perspective. According to Global Workforce or Workplace Analytics, in 2018, there was about 4.3 million people in the US that worked from home at least half the time, which makes up about 3.2% of the US workforce. Post-pandemic, that percentage has risen to 26%. And of those participant remote workers, about 40% of those believe they were more productive working from home as opposed to working in the office. So while that's a significant number, that alone doesn't really make a compelling case for remote work. But if you think about it, even at all of that, this debate is centered around about 1/4 of at least the US workforce. So there's a lot of debate and discussion around 25% of the workers. The person making my meal at the fast food restaurant cannot do that job remotely. So there's lots and lots of positions that are just absolutely not eligible for remote work. I believe there's a lot more deep-rooted issues driving the remote work sentiment, and it may be a few years before the social scientists can sort out all the complexities of the social and organizational dynamics. But I want to share some words from colleague Kay Sargent, who's a director of workplace at HOK, leading international design firm. And she puts it into a very captivating perspective. Kay says that, corporate real estate and FM are really being set up for failure, with the onus being put on them to create spaces where people want to be. But she kind of goes on to say, we're not really addressing the real problem. In decades past, people went to school, they got a 4-year degree, and that was supposed to carry them for 30 years on to retirement. And now you're lucky if a 4-year degree holds you for about 5 years, because you're having to go out and learn new things. And today we're not just working 30 years, it's more like 40 or 50 years. And to my earlier point, I have about 4.5 decades of work life on me, so I'm older than I look. But decades ago, people may have put in long hours, but when they left the office, they left work. And that doesn't happen anymore. We're failing to acknowledge that in the way that we're working, for the period that we now have to work, at the speed we need to get re-educated and re-skilled, and the fact that we're not just working 8 hours anymore, it's impacting our entire life. So it's fundamentally changed. It's not sustainable anymore to work the way we've been working. And you're telling people to come back to something that was killing them in the first place, and not openly acknowledging that we need to do something differently. Kay says what we call hybrid is actually more of an operational model than a workplace model. So you can create the most amazing spaces on the planet, but if you're not treating the people well, you don't have policies to support them, and you're driving for an hour to go sit on Zoom calls all day. I don't care how many croissants you give them in the office, they're not coming back. Again, we're not addressing those main issues. Work and work life have fundamentally shifted, radically, and it's not sustainable to keep doing what we've been doing. So that's my thoughts on that one.